Chapter 171. Two heavenly human realm great demons were injured, though they fled desperately for their lives. Li Hao's sword was faster. Bien appeared again, the petals paving the way. The sword chi instantly tore open the body of the purple-eyed Mad Bull demon, ripping its body apart. Then, the sword chi turned like a corner and exploded the head of the green-scaled viper. Both great demons perished instantly. Being of the same heavenly human realm, they were no match for Li Hao in a single encounter. Li Hao's gaze shifted towards Li Hongzhuang, wanting to assist her. The disparity between his abilities today and when he first stepped into the heavenly human realm was immense. In these past few days of consolidation, he had integrated many cultivation techniques into his Grandmaster path, forming a rudimentary new technique system. But at that moment, another great demon charged out from the demon horde at the same time. Demons were colliding everywhere in the camp, tearing many tents to shreds. Other demons were charging towards that graveyard. Li Hao glanced at Li Hongzhuang. She was surrounded by three immortal realm great demons but had not fallen into a disadvantage. The peerless technique she executed was so powerful that the three great demons dared not resist it head-on. It seemed that she could hold on for a while longer. Li Hao no longer held back nor saw any need to hide his strength. Deploying the heaven and earth law manifestation in an instant, a Dharma body, golden body 100 feet tall appeared as if a majestic deity had descended. Li Hongzhuang, deeply engaged in fierce battle with the three great demons, was startled by this sudden grand aura. When she noticed, she was shocked. A divine soul of such stature was at least an entity of the four stands realm, yet the appearance of the divine soul was that of the same youth from earlier. Shock surfaced in Li Hongzhuang's eyes. She did not know what kind of soul-refining skill Li Hao had practiced to condense his divine soul to such a terrifying degree. At this moment, Li Hao's heaven and earth law manifestation stood tall in the middle of the camp. Raising his palm, he struck down into the horde of demons, and immediately, countless demons were annihilated with a single slap in the face of this horde. Deploying the endless sea swordsmanship would have been most suitable. It was excellent for large-scale group attacks, or deploying the falling snow sword skill would also cover a wide area. But both were martial arts of the Li family, which Li Hao had promised not to use again. He manipulated the Dharma body, deploying his self-created technique that combined cultivation techniques into his Grandmaster path. Falling snow sword skill, yin and yang inversion sword rain's intent formed a new swordsmanship, the blizzard sword technique. Two superior sword skills, infused with the rain, one of the many natural elements, created a brand new top-tier peerless technique. Li Hao took all of nature as his master. The rain was one of the elements, its intent complementing the falling snow sword skill, paired with the reality and illusion of the yin and yang inversion sword. The moves within the blizzard were unpredictable. Regrettably, Li Hao did not have a divine sword in his hand at the moment, which greatly reduced the might of his sword technique. Still, it was more than enough to annihilate these lesser demons. In an instant, the temperature dropped sharply, the cold spread far and wide, as if snowflakes started to appear, accompanied by raindrops like dew. They were then swept away by a force, transforming into a storm that swept into the horde of demons. Demons that touched the edge of the blizzard were swiftly slashed and torn apart. Their bodies uncontrollably sucked into it, utterly pulverized. These seemed like snowflakes and wind blades, but in reality they were vortices formed by numerous sword chi. Li Hao took a deep breath, veins throbbing vigorously, and swung his sword thrice in succession. Three blizzard vortices swept through the camp, a vast number of demons falling dead. With each movement of the heaven and earth law manifestation, more demons were trampled and killed. Even 15 Li realm demons that tried to attack Li Hao's Dharma body were effortlessly crushed with a single palm. Li Hao stood in the camp, like an invincible war god, manipulating sword chi to slay all the demons. More and more demons surged forward, but they suffered heavy casualties, blood flowing and limbs scattering everywhere. Li Hao held a broken long sword in his hand, standing unshaken in his heart. He regretted and marveled that among his first 6 realms, it seemed that only divine traveling had reached its pinnacle, condensing the heaven and earth law manifestation. The other realms had yet to touch their limits. Once he had opened up all his major meridians, perhaps he would reach the limit of the Zhou Tian realm. Who knew what mysteries would then unveil? And the same was true for the other realms. Divine might. Seeing more demons charging towards the graveyard, Li Hao's eyes suddenly blazed with fury as he deployed the Buddha nature realm power of the heavenly human realm. Divine might. The heavenly human realm had 3 stages: unity, Buddha nature, and great grandmaster. Just stepping into the heavenly human realm, strictly speaking, one could not be called a grandmaster but was only able to integrate one's own techniques into a whole. The next step was to condense the divine soul, fortify it into Buddha nature, commanding divine might to intimidate thousands with a single fury. The last was the great Grandmaster realm, a match for 10,000 enemies. Reaching this realm, one could struggle in the midst of an army, but not for long. The freedom to come and go in the three immortal realms was still vastly different after days of consolidation. Li Hao had moved from unity a few days ago to the great Grandmaster realm. 10,000 enemies were no match. At this moment, he stood in the camp like a divine general that commanded awe in all directions, constantly wreaking havoc with the Dharma body, concentrating divine might to deter the demons in front of the graveyard. Then he condensed divine might into a sword, just as he had done when he battled Li Tiangang, the opponent's divine might knife. Of course, the divine might condensed by the three immortal realms was even more formidable than that of the Grandmaster realm. The strength of this divine might depended on one's own divine soul power, and Li Hao's divine might was exceptionally peerless within the same realm. At this moment, his roar caused many demons to be frightened out of their wits. Halting their headlong charge abruptly, Li Hao charged through, killing all the demons that had invaded the camp. The falling snow sword skill swept through the camp, wreaking havoc and devouring the lives of these demons every moment. Although Li Hao was alone, with the aid of the heaven and earth law manifestation, he had the momentum of being invincible, causing the demons at the rear to calm down, fear taking hold of their hearts, and the intent to retreat emerging. Bastard! In the distance, the Faping that was besieging Li Hongzhuang saw its demon troops suffering heavy casualties and was beside itself with rage, letting out an indignant screech to the sky. "What are you looking at?" Li Hongzhuang suddenly swung her sword at it. The Faping hastily dodged, but its wing was still slashed, causing it both shock and anger. It said to Qi Hujun, "You hold her off first. I need to go quickly and cut down that damned brat." Qi Hujun wanted to keep it there, but then thought that the Iron Lady seemed to care quite a bit about the boy just now. Perhaps if the Faping could go and kill him, it might distract her, so it immediately nodded. "Go quickly and return quickly." 3 breaths. The figure of the Faping had already swiftly darted out, intending to tear that damned boy to shreds within 3 breaths. Li Hao was still pushing through and slaughtering the group of demons when he suddenly sensed the sound of something cleaving through air. He turned his head and saw that it was the black giant bird. Far from being alarmed, he was actually pleased. This would ease some pressure off Li Hongzhuang. "I wonder, how much does my current strength fall short of the 3 immortal realms?" Li Hao no longer paid attention to the group of demons. The heaven and earth law manifestation behind him also turned around, looking down upon the approaching black giant bird. "Die!" The Faping roared and charged directly, unleashing its most ferocious attack, shooting out a black coruscating light like thunderous lightning. Aiming to kill the boy, Li Hao's eyes grew solemn as he slowly stepped forward. Executing another peerless technique, he had comprehended half-step invincible fist river severing sword skill meteor's intent, combining to form his own punch, Fury Star. With each step, the cultivation technique within Li Hao's body rapidly contracted and circulated, reaching 7-fold in a blink of an eye. The 7-star lighting trait was triggered, and the power of the cultivation technique doubled. Combined with the yin and yang double explosion power, just the strength that burst forth from his physical body alone reached 35 million jin. At the same time, the relentlessly fierce sword intent of the swordsmanship, paired with the power amplification of the invincible fist and the boosting assistance from the law manifestation. This punch from Li Hao reached the pinnacle of power amid the howling. The entire night sky seemed to lose its color, and the sparkling punch tore through the night, erupting forth. The air twisted, with the ultimate punch bursting out like a meteor, carrying an overwhelming, invincible might, reflecting in the pupils of the black giant bird. This is impossible!" The black giant bird screamed, flailing its claws and firing more than a dozen black thunders, but they were annihilated before the punch's might. It was then engulfed by the punch's shadow, its massive body struck by the law manifestation's punch and sent flying, crying out in agony. Its chest caved in and shattered, feathers falling and scattering with a whoosh. The body of the black giant bird tumbled into the battlefield where Li Hongzhuang was, covered with blood and dust from the ground. And it was in a sorry state. Qi Hujun and the 6-tusked sting pig's pupils shrank, their faces filled with shock, nearly being caught by Li Hongzhuang's blade in their moment of distraction. Close to being split in two, they quickly put distance between themselves and the bird, turning to look at the black giant bird. The other had said it would return in 3 breaths. Now what about 3 breaths? It had returned in just 1 breath, but it was beaten back. The 2 immortal great demons stared dumbfounded at the distant boy, whose aura was undoubtedly that of the heavenly human realm. But you're telling me someone from the heavenly human realm can send an immortal great demon flying in a single breath? Li Hongzhuang was unable to take advantage of the situation and felt annoyed, but seeing the faping on the ground, she couldn't help but reveal a hint of shock in her eyes and involuntarily divided her attention to look towards Li Hao. Was that move just now his own doing? At this time, the faping on the ground got up, spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, and some shattered internal organs. In its eyes emerged a mix of alarm and fear, and as it looked toward the boy, felt the threat of death from that one punch, terror rising in its heart. Run! The faping no longer dared to stay. Demons cherished their lives, and there was no point tangling with the human race, especially when they were not sure if there were other humans lurking in the shadows. They had mainly come today to probe, and if they could have managed to kill Li Hongzhuang in passing, it would have been an excellent outcome. But that boy was too peculiar, making it uneasy to the faping. Letting out a cry of warning was acting with enormous compassion. As soon as it finished speaking, it already spread its wings and soared into the sky, darting towards the distance with great speed. Chi Hu Jun and the 6-tusked sting pigs' faces changed slightly, realizing that with their opponent fleeing, facing 2 against 2 would definitely put them at a disadvantage previously. With 3 against 1, and if they could prolong the battle, they might have managed to kill Li Hongzhuang. But now, without the faping, it became even less likely. Almost without hesitation, they too escaped quickly. They had attacked the city several times, and if they couldn't breach it, they would retreat. Li Hongzhuang swung her sword to chase, but the 2 great demons were extremely fast, and the demon horde met her head-on to impede her, acting like human shields. Even though they posed no threat to Li Hongzhuang, they delayed her pursuit. You stay here and watch, I'll go after them. Before Li Hongzhuang could stomp her foot in secret frustration, Li Hao's voice came from behind her, and then he charged forward, riding the winds to chase after the 2 great demons. Li Hongzhuang was startled, her expression changing drastically. Chapter 172. Do not enter a forest when encountering them. Do not pursue desperate bandits. This is a great taboo for those in the military. But Li Hao had already chased after their quarry. Li Hongzhuang wanted to stop him, yet it was already too late. Grinding her teeth in anger, she swiftly swung her sword, planning to slay all the demons before her and then chase after Li Hao. She worried that if she left at this moment, those demons would destroy the graveyard, where the lingering spirits of over 90,000 of the Bloodshah army lay, alongside the subordinate officers of her 3rd and 6th brothers. 4 years, what she had been guarding was not just a city, but its people. All she hoped was that Li He could stop Li Hao in time, or at least ensure he could retreat in one piece. Whoosh! Li Hao chased at full speed. Some demons on the ground attempted to rush over to block him, but Li Hao simply slashed them down with his sword, trampling over the fallen corpses of the demons. His speed increased even more. His control over objects was already about 3 times that of a normal heavenly human realm practitioner, and now, combined with the Bai-Fengxing true form skill, he was only slightly slower than the 2 great demons of the 3 immortal realms, at least not enough to lose them. After chasing for 40 li, just as the 2 great demons were about to dive into the wilderness, Li Hao shouted loudly, "Stop!" The 2 great demons suddenly turned back, noticing the young man who had been closely following them. The reason they hadn't turned around earlier was precisely because they feared that Li Hongzhuang would also join the chase. But now, with Li Hongzhuang still at the camp, even if she wanted to rush over, it was already too late. "You rotten brat, you dare to chase after us by yourself?" The 2 great demons suddenly spun around, their faces twisted in ferocity and cold sneers. They had led Li Hao to this place for exactly this reason, to lure him over. Li Hao's gaze settled on the dazzling white tusks of the 6-tusked brute hog as he said, "Those teeth of yours are quite good, just what I need for a sword. I hope to borrow them for a bit to craft something." "You're simply seeking death." The 6-tusked brute hog was furious. Did this mere heavenly human realm meal actually dare to covet its precious tusks? With a roar, its body swelled, demonic energy boiled, and behind it formed a towering, 10-jong tall phantom image of a gigantic beastly hog. its fur turned from dark to blood red as if engorged, its bristles standing up like steel needles, displaying divine might as it charged straight towards Li Hao. If it were an officer under the heavenly human realm, without the protection of the protecting heart military might formation, the mere divine might emanated by this demon hog would be enough to make them petrified, unable to hold onto their weapons. Li Hao himself had reached the heavenly human realm, and although the divine might affected him, the impact was limited suddenly. He activated the tiger press feature, an echoing roar of a fierce tiger emanating from his body. At the same time, he did not evade, and in the face of the demon hog's momentum that could destroy a city wall array, he stomped firmly in place. He extended his arms, and the qualities of the Cheongchi Mountains, painting were ignited his body, stable as a mountain, stood tall and unmovable with a thud. He grasped at the demon hog's tusks. The brute force sent him sliding dozens of meters backward in midair. Yet his feet retained the stomping posture without changing. Rise? Li Hao suddenly roared, his slender arms erupting with the power of a true dragon, hoisting the body of the brute high up, then mercilessly spinning to smash it on the other side of the ground. The ground shook, sounding like an earthquake, and a deep pit caved in. In hiding, Li He, on the verge of intervening, halted his steps instantly, his pupils contracted in shock. On the road, he had sensed a powerful presence secretly protecting Li Hao, but aside from the battle between Li Hao and Li Tiangang, he had not seen Li Hao combat other experts of the three immortal realms. Now, whether it was the punch that had repelled Faping earlier or the current bludgeoning of the demon hog, Li Hao demonstrated formidable and tyrannical strength. Could he truly be just heavenly human realm? What kind of Tian insect grandmaster could possess such impressive might? On the collapsed ground, the six-tusked brute hog let out an agonizing scream, vomiting a large mouthful of fluids and blood, the stench pungently offending the nostrils. It had reached the indestructible realm, its body tough as solid metal, impervious to sword and blade, yet under the 3 million gene colossal force burst from Li Hao's arms, it was still thrown and smashed into disarray, its internal organs displaced, sustaining grievous injuries. You bastard, stop. Seeing Li Hao about to deliver the killing blow, Qi Hujun could no longer tolerate, bellowing in fury as he charged at Li Hao. Li Hao instantly unleashed the characteristic of the Cheongchi Mountains painting. Behind him appeared the ancient figure of the demon king Cheongchi, standing atop a mountain, his stature tiger-like, its eyes, seemingly overlapping with Li Hao's, both glanced up, coldly leering at the charging Qi Hujun. Qi Hujun's pupils constricted, sensing an overwhelming aura of ferocity washing over him like a surging river, pressing against his chest, making it difficult to breathe, his blood running cold. His body's forward charge meant for reinforcement halted inexplicably right then under this deterrent. And it was this pause that allowed Li Hao's body to spring forth, diving towards the six-tusked brute hog, his feet descending on its head like a weighty mountain, pressing the just arising hog back into the ground. Then, Li Hao wrapped his arms around one of the ivory-like white tusks, twisted at his waist, leveraging the full force of his body, and with a crack, he actually snapped off the 2-meter-long tusk. As the tusk came off, blood splattered, and the six-tusked brute hog let out an earth-shattering scream. Its limbs flailing in agony, but Li Hao, holding the tusk, thrust it viciously back through its eye socket. Although the six-tusked brute hog was in the indestructible realm, it had not cultivated to the ultimate peak. Its eye socket remained its most vulnerable spot. Immediately penetrated, the tusk plunged into it, the entire length disappearing, its screams growing even more deafening, shaking the wilderness. By then, Qi Hujun had also snapped back to reality, his heart shaken. In just this short span, the mid-stage six-tusked brute hog of the three immortal realms had almost been killed by the young man. Chapter 173. Stop! Qi Hujun roared, charging at Li Hao once again. Li Hao embraced the pig's fang he had drawn out and turned to look at the onrushing Qi Hujun. His eyes were icy as he suddenly executed a sword technique he had devised himself, a single-target killing move. Meteors fall. This was a sword technique infused with Meteor's intent, sharing a wondrous similarity to Furious Star. Using the fang as a sword, the white light shone in an instant and sword chi crisscrossed the air. Li Hao layered in the hidden bow characteristics from the swordsmanship patterns within his flesh, allowing him to conceal his true killing technique. Once struck without notice, the destructive power would be doubled. Qi Hujun roared in shock and anger, swinging the divine iron chains on his body and fiercely lashing them at the sword chi emitted by the fang. The whip shadows were like dragons, shattering the sword chi effortlessly as if encountering no resistance. Before Qi Hujun could react, a supremely sharp light of a sword surged from the darkness. The sword light pierced through his chest, splattering a great deal of blood, and his internal organs burst, being of the unwithering realm. His flesh was already indestructible, but at this moment, he could not withstand the power of this sword. Chi Hu-jun's body staggered back, his eyes showing horror, feeling the shadow of death looming over him. He hurriedly used his unwithering strength to heal his flesh, however, without looking back, and while his body was still healing, he seized the momentum of the impact to turn around and flee. Li He, watching from the shadows, widened his eyes in disbelief. When Li Hao had first come tracking them, he had inwardly sighed, feeling it was a tough case. Even dealing with these two great demons himself would be challenging. Yet Li Hao had seriously wounded and repelled them in the blink of an eye, with his own strength alone. This son of Li Tiangang, the legitimate young master, was simply monstrously non-human. As a grandmaster of the heavenly human realm, battling against enemies from the three immortal realms was not unheard of. For example, among the Li family's direct descendants, most had such achievements, but they were only against the early stages of the immortal realm. If they encountered a mid-stage foe, they would rely on their divine weapons to engage in combat. But Li Hao was alone against two barehanded. He had brought them to their knees. Seeing the fleeing Chi Hu-jun, a cold glint flashed in Li Hao's eyes. He suddenly threw the boar's fang, covering it with the power of object control and utilizing the characteristics of the flying phase from his chess manual. This method, recorded alongside the myriad imagination chess manual and embedded within his body, was rarely used by Li Hao. Flying phase allowed the attack range to double, possessing the ability for ultra-long range strikes, along with an additional increase to the attack's power. At this moment, his flying phase stacked upon hidden bow, along with the inherent sword intent covering the boar fang, instantly covering tens of miles. Although Chi Hu-jun was fast enough to cause the ground to thunder while fleeing, the sudden sound of air being torn approached at an incredible speed. His eyes widened in terror as he roared, swinging his chains in an attempt to slow down the fang's assault. However, the fang crumbled upon contact and was sent flying by his chain. But the real killing move was the sword chi hidden behind it. With a thud, it instantly swept across Chi Hu-jun's body. His huge tiger frame trembled as it crashed to the ground, splitting apart with the divine iron of the chain still binding him. He blocked that sword chi, the rest of his body being cleanly bisected. Li Hao glanced over and remotely controlled the boar fang to pierce down towards Chi Hu-jun's head. A strand of divine soul tried to scramble out from its head, seeking to flee, but was instantly shattered by the plummeting boar fang. Divine soul and all, such a great demon, if its divine soul remained, could inhabit another being, or even seize the human race for survival. Having dealt with Chi Hu-jun, Li Hao's gaze shifted to the six-fanged hibernating boar struggling on the ground without any courtesy. He summoned back his fang and soon after, similarly penetrated the boar demon's head, nailing it to the ground. The night wind was bone-chillingly cold. The stench of blood permeated the air. Li Hao stood on the body of the three immortals. Boar demon, pulling out its other boar fang as well. Apart from the Faping, which had initially reacted quickly and escaped, these two great demons of the immortal realm had been slain by Li Hao. As a member of the heavenly human realm, having slain two immortal realm great demons, the young figure stood in the night wind, stark and piercing, like a javelin. The battle over, Li Hao's tense body relaxed. The aftereffects of the seven-star lighting and the overexertion of the yin and yang dual pulse hit him, and he couldn't help but gasp for breath, feeling a sense of fatigue and weakness all over. He had not yet reached the unwithering realm and couldn't rely on the unwithering strength to instantly replenish his state. But fortunately, with his ability to conceal and nurture, as long as he relaxed his body, he could slowly recover in this aspect. He was incomparable to other members of the heavenly human realm. Li Hao did not rush back to the camp but sat on the carcass of the boar demon, resting at this state. As long as it wasn't an immortal realm demon, he still had the power to resist. If there were any immortal great demons lurking in the dark, they'd have to rely on his father to take action. This battle had allowed Li Hao to faintly touch upon his current limits of power, a result that gave him satisfaction, but at the same time, he felt the immense dominance of that man's power during their earlier battle in the city. After recovering his cultivation level to the three immortals' middle stage following the breaking of the vow of the heart, he could easily suppress him. This was the power of a true dragon of the Li family, a top peerless prodigy. far more formidable than an immortal realm great demon of the same realm, practically a sweeping force unless faced with an attack by over 10 top immortal realm great demons. One could possibly push him to his limit, however. Back then, he wasn't as strong as now with his current power. Perhaps he could at least fight to a draw. Chapter 174. Li Hao lifted his gaze towards the starry sky, noticing that the stars over the frontier pass were even more transparent and dazzling than inside the city. The countless stars seemed to be reflected in the young man's eyes, sparkling with the cold light of celestial bodies. Li Hao knew that besides comprehending the state of mind and achieving spiritual awakening to enter the 3 immortal realms, there was still much room for improvement in the heavenly human realm. For instance, to maximize every realm from the power passage realm to the limits. For this, he would need numerous cultivation techniques, to check for deficiencies by corroborating different techniques and refine his body to perfection. My physical strength in the power passage realm has already surpassed 100,000 gene, but it seems it hasn't touched the limit yet. The strength of the flesh can still be improved. The Li family's body refining techniques are not abundant. Perhaps these demons focus more on body refinement. Li Hao pondered the bodies of demons, most of which were comparable to swords, possessed wild and fierce strength, and had their own methods of body refinement. The human race's body refining techniques were researched by the human experts themselves. Just as demon techniques were naturally researched by demons, the human race could forge treasure armors and divine weapons and, along with other cultivation techniques, received quicker and greater returns in strength, causing the sect of body refinement to decline. However, it wasn't the same for demons. They focused more on their physical bodies. After all, they didn't have as many healing pills, their artifact refining standards were lower, and they often had to rely on their flesh to withstand battles against demons of the same realm. If the human race's treasure armor and divine weapons were slightly inferior, they would be no match at all. I wonder where the lairs of these 2 great demons are. I should search them later. They must have left some demons to guard their territory. Li Hao looked toward the camp, and through his divine soul's concentrated gaze, he saw that the battle there was also coming to an end after all. The demon king of the immortal realm had fled, and the remaining great demons weren't brainless. Knowing when to retreat wisely, they chose to withdraw. They only sent the lower-level demons to obstruct and slow down the enemy's pursuit. You didn't need to run the fastest, but you had to run faster than your kind. The previously menacing horde of demons had now disintegrated, leaving only the smaller demons in panicked flight. After resting for a moment, Li Hao, with a giant boar tusk in each hand, headed back to the camp. Li Hongzhuang should know about these demon lairs, by the way. He should also learn more about the distribution and situation of the demons outside the frontier pass from her. Within the camp, Li Hongzhuang stood in front of the graveyard, surrounded by slain demons. As for the small mound, she could no longer afford to care about it. Under the demons' trampling and impacts, the mound had become even smaller over the years of battles and conflicts. That's how Kanjia City gradually fell. Seeing that all the demons had fled, Li Hongzhuang breathed a sigh of relief and immediately rushed out of the camp. Her divine soul flew out, searching into the distance. Upon closer inspection, her gaze suddenly froze. She saw that, dozens of miles away, the head of the pig demon had split open and it lay on the ground, lifeless. And further, dozens of miles away from the pig demon, the Chi Hu Jun that had repeatedly invaded her territory lay in a pool of blood, its head smashed, its body torn apart, and its inner organs and blood had dyed the nearby ground red. Both great demons from the immortal realm were unexpectedly dead. In the night breeze, only the figure of that young man was visible, stepping through the blood traces of the demons on his way back in his hands. He carried a 2-meter-long boar tusk each. Looking totally at ease, Li Hongzhuang stood there in shock. Was it Li He's doing? Impossible. Although Li He was from the older generation, he was only a son of a concubine. He was even allowed to choose only one peerless technique from the Listening Rain Tower to learn. To learn a second one required him to establish a tremendous contribution to the family and gain significant renown for himself. In Li Hongzhuang's mind, Li He's strength should be much inferior to hers. Even she wouldn't be able to kill 2 great demons from the 3 immortal realms so swiftly, let alone Li He. Could it be based on Li Hao's own abilities? Li Hongzhuang thought of how Li Hao had previously repelled the Faping Great Demon with a single punch. Her expression shifted slightly. This child was only in the heavenly human realm, wasn't he? With shock and doubt in her heart, she stood at the fort's gate, quietly waiting for the young man to return. Did you kill this demon on your own? Or did you team up with Li He? Li Hongzhuang immediately asked. On my own. Li Hao said. You've worked hard. This is the place I'm supposed to guard. How can it be considered hard work? Li Hongzhuang replied irritably, and then sized up Li Hao, saying, Are you really my seventh brother's child? I'm not. Li Hongzhuang said, I mean that kind of, neither kind. Li Hao shook his head. How did they keep returning to this topic? He carried the two boar tusks into the camp. His divine soul appeared briefly above his head, scanning the area and seeing that Rinqianqian and the little white fox were still by the campfire, seemingly uninjured. The tents near the campfire also remained intact, spared from being torn apart by the demons. The only thing missing was the package of roasted meat wrapped in leaves. Li Hao was momentarily speechless. He could almost picture Feng sneakily taking the roasted meat during the confusion, sitting in a dark spot and leisurely gnawing away, while casually swatting away any demon that approached Rinqianqian. While he and Li Hongzhuang were caught up in this exhausting fight, the old man had been taking it easy. However, Li Hao felt not the slightest resentment, only gratitude in his heart. If it weren't for the old man's whispered transmission back then, he wouldn't have known how to overcome that barrier. It was the old man's words that gave him the courage, and it was the old man who had protected him all the way from Qingzhou to Liangzhou. And to this place, along the way, the old man had stealthily killed countless demons for him. Chapter 175. You should know, the demons holding grudges against the Li family have accumulated countless over the past 1,000 years. From the moment he stepped out of the Li residence, the news had already spread such sensational events. The grudgeful demons would naturally be the first to know. Along the way, his figure was under the watchful eyes of countless demons. It was Feng who shielded him from all of this. That day's sky filled with heavy snow. Yet not a single flake landed on the young man fleeing from home. It was all blocked by that lean and withered figure. This kindness Li Hao found hard to express with words. At this moment, Li Hongzhuang also returned to the campfire. She looked somewhat exhausted. After releasing the unwithering strength, she couldn't use it again in the short term unless she forcibly went against her blood flow, but that would cause permanent hidden injuries and become a barrier to reaching higher levels. It seemed like an ability that depleted resources, yet its effects were extremely powerful. Not only could it save lives in critical moments, but it could also greatly enhance combat power, equivalent to having 2 lives. Moreover, in the unwithering state, her strength never dried up, flowing endlessly, allowing her to freely execute some extremely exhausting peerless techniques, each move a deadly strike, and her combat power could surge manifold. How did you manage it? Did Li He distract one for you? Li Hongzhuang sat down and immediately asked, still skeptical and disbelieving that Li Hao could kill 2 immortal great demons on his own. You're overthinking it. Li Hao said indifferently. Unless it was a life-and-death situation, Li He wouldn't make a move. He knew what that man in town was thinking, trying to use the cruelty and danger of the Heavenly Gate Pass to force him to return, to bow his head, and to change his temperament and personality. But if he changed his temperament, would he still be himself? He had been like this since birth in both his past and present life. For decades, if they couldn't stand it, then there was no need to see each other. After all, which true father would dislike his own child? And besides, he had said he would rather die outside than die in that courtyard. Li Hongzhuang sized up Li Hao, observing the young man's calm and composed face, unperturbed by the changes, and aside from the demon blood that stained him, he seemed hardly injured. At the heavenly human realm, to slay an immortal without a scratch, would the 7th brother even know about this? Even in the divine general mansion, accustomed to geniuses, such a feat if spoken aloud might not be believed by many. Can you roast meat again? Li Hongzhuang suddenly asked. Li Hao raised an eyebrow and glanced at her just as he heard a rumbling sound coming from her stomach. Li Hongzhuang's face, however, showed no embarrassment, and she said indifferently, I just released the unwithering strength, which consumed some of my body's energy. This is quite normal. So it seemed even a 3 immortals peak would be a glutton. Li Hao muttered to himself but didn't refuse. After the battle ended, with demon corpses strewn everywhere, he looked around and selected 2. Then, borrowing Ren Qianqian's spare sword, he quickly cleaned them, removing the innards and blood, flinging them outside the encampment. He chose parts that were both fatty and lean, marinated them with salt and other seasonings, reignited the campfire, and began to roast the meat over the flames. Too bad, my cooking art hasn't reached spiritual awakening. My experience points. Li Hao sighed inwardly, holding the 2 sharp fangs in his hand. An idea suddenly struck him. Could sharpening these fangs into a sword be considered a carving artistic skill? Although he hadn't thought of deliberately enhancing his carving skill before, if he could incidentally gain some carving experience, he could accumulate 3 skill points even before advancing to a deeper state of mind in carving. If that were the case, mastering one more artistic skill at the spiritual awakening level, his movement technique could advance further. With that thought, Li Hao immediately called for a stone and started to grind the boar demon's fangs on it. "What are you doing?" Li Hongzhuang asked. Puzzled, Li Hao replied, "I'm missing a sword, trying to see if I can fashion one out of this." "Even if you were to grind this stone to dust, it's unlikely to wear down this demon fang," said Li Hongzhuang. "Do you have a method? You ran away from home without even bringing a sword?" Li Hongzhuang couldn't help but express her incredulity. Wandering Jianghu unarmed, that's something only second uncle would do, but he is, after all, a master of boxing. With just a finger, he can break swords, chop through knives, penetrate precious armor, and outmatch all weapons. Li Hao couldn't be bothered to engage with her any further. It seemed that none of these martial artists had any insight, always bringing up the most inconvenient topics. However, Li Hongzhuang's words did hold some truth. Grinding his teeth on that broken stone wasn't effective at all. Li Hao thought for a moment. His gaze landed on Li Hongzhuang's sword's edge, but he quickly dismissed the idea. He scanned the surroundings and soon found the bodies of 2 heavenly human realm great demons. He searched their bodies, removed their sharp claws, teeth, and horns, and brought them back to the campfire using a beast's horn. Li Hao began to rub and etch the boar demon's tusks. As he employed his immense arm strength with continuous friction, gradually the horn and the boar's tooth both began to show signs of wear, their shape starting to change. "You have gained an understanding of the carving arts. Carving experience 18. Carving experience 21. Messages leapt out in front of him, recording this new artistic skill followed by a stream of carving experience points one after another. Indeed, Li Hao thought with a surge of surprise. Before long, his carving experience had risen to 100 points. The carving arts advanced from the 0th stage to the 1st stage, earning him an additional skill point. What a pity! His movement technique had just reached the 3rd stage and needed a state of mind to continue improving. For now, Li Hao could only save them up to use later. If he suddenly achieved a cooking-related spiritual awakening, he could even use them on his already 6th stage physical body path. "Stepping into the 3 immortal realms in one fell swoop, you really are stubborn," Li Hongzhuang said, shaking her head upon seeing Li Hao's relentless effort, and commented, "This kind of grinding is useless." "I know." Just as his carving arts had advanced to the 1st stage, a flood of basic knowledge about carving had emerged. Li Hao was also aware of how foolish his previous attempts at grinding looked, understanding how complex the task of polishing was. Especially with such hard materials, the best method for carving would either be an extremely sharp carving knife or softening the material. Forcing a grind was simply being hard-headed. The only method to soften the tusks at the moment would be to use fire. Ordinary flames might not even suffice, as the tusks contained the concentrated energy and natural patterns accumulated over centuries by the beast, making them impregnable. Luckily, Li Hao, with a cooking-related state of mind, had conceived a fire system skill, the Zishu Palm. The technique contained extremely scorching flame power, its intricacies likely of an upper-tier cultivation technique level. All this was thanks to the ignite insight that came with the cooking arts at the 6th stage. However, Li Hao hadn't learned any palm techniques himself. Boxing and palm techniques were distinct. Like swords and sabers, Li Hao didn't have enough skill points, and since it's better to master a few than dabble in many, he practiced boxing and not palm techniques. This was his only palm technique, used primarily for igniting fires for cooking. At this moment, Li Hao absorbed energy from the surroundings into his palms, which instantaneously turned a dark purple hue. Shrouded with intense purple flames, the fire covered part of the tusk, slowly roasting it. "The cultivation techniques you learn are quite varied," Li Hongzhuang noted with a slight raise of her eyebrows. She had glimpsed a bit of her second uncle's influence in Li Hao's boxing technique earlier, recognizing it as a top-notch peerless technique. In addition, Li Hao's swordsmanship was also impressive. The speed of his movement technique during the chase was at the peak of the Grandmaster realm within the heavenly human realm, and now he surprised her with palm techniques, and even his cooking smelled delicious. How did this kid's mind develop? At just 14. Where did he find the energy and time? Could it be he started cultivating inside Auntie Seven's womb? Chapter 176. While roasting the monster's fangs with his palm, Li Hao asked Li Hongzhuang, "You know the location of the lairs of the great demons that attacked tonight, don't you?" Li Hongzhuang paused slightly, then said, "What, do you actually intend to take out their lairs? Is there a problem?" Li Hao asked, puzzled. Li Hongzhuang had nothing to say. Of course, there was no problem if it were possible to destroy them. Not only would he want to go personally, but she would also like to flatten them. In the past, when she was stationed here, she couldn't leave, otherwise. Once the demons invaded and she was not there to protect them, the soldiers, even with the help of several deputy generals, would not be able to withstand attacks from the three immortal great demons. After all, Kanjia City had been breached before, and there were no defensive array walls left, leaving it completely defenseless. The divine might of just the three immortal great demons was enough for the army to handle. You've just arrived. And I haven't had the chance to tell you about the demon forces outside Heavenly Gate Pass, she said. Li Hongzhuang began drawing on the sandy ground in front of the campfire with her sword. She had not intended to discuss this with Li Hao since he was just a child. From the information she had received from Li He, she already knew that her seventh brother was planning to abandon Heavenly Gate Pass. After all, the reinforcements sent over the years had been dwindling, and no one bothered to repair the broken walls. If it weren't for the fact that this was Dayu territory, land that their ancestors of the Li family had opened up, they wouldn't have defended this place to death. Sending this child over for what they called a handover was merely a way of telling them that it was fine to give up this place. Incidentally, they wanted this genius son, who had conflicts with her, to lower his head and experience the peril of the demons only. She was quite sure her seventh brother hadn't anticipated that on just the first night of his arrival, her monstrous child would single-handedly slay two of the immortal great demons that had plagued this place for years. This battle achievement, if discussed at other frontier passes for rewards and promotions, would probably warrant a first-class special merit, and if he didn't already hold a noble title, he could be directly crowned as a third-class earl. The three demons you saw tonight, each belongs to a mountain territory ruled by a demon king, she said. Li Hongzhuang drew a circle with her sword. This is our Kanjia city. As she said this, she laughed self-deprecatingly. There was nothing left around them that could be called a city. 3,000 miles to the east from here is the remote town of Northern Cold Country, she said. Between them, right here, there is a mountain range, the first stronghold of the demon forces outside the territory. Li Hongzhuang drew a small circle, her expression growing solemn. That is Longshan Taoist Temple, inhabited by a 10,000-year-old true dragon that calls itself the Dragon Lord. It's a great demon from the Four Stands realm. Hearing her words, Li Hao's eyes narrowed slightly, staring at the circle in front of the sword tip. This is forbidden territory. No matter what happens, do not set foot here, she said seriously. Under normal circumstances, the Dragon Lord will not leave Longshan Taoist Temple, nor will it attack Heavenly Gate Pass, because if it does come, it would be violating our territory. Li Hao nodded slightly, recalling the conversations he'd had with his second uncle while fishing. These great demons from outside the frontier passes didn't dare to invade recklessly. Why not? The answer was simple. They had all been personally warned by the elder generation of each divine general mansion. It was like the ancient treaty agreement signed between Dayu and the demon kings of the Four Stands realm. Don't listen? Either the older generation of the divine general mansion would take action, or it would be the immortal from Gantao Palace. They dared not disobey. This majestic and ancient royal dynasty, though now aged, still retained a deterrent force and presence that commanded respect in all directions. As for why they only issued a warning and didn't directly slay the great demons, that's another matter. The number of these great demons is not small. They are just not united. If warned individually, they would remain wary. But if a mass slaughter occurred, agitating the rest who might band together in response, it could cause heavy casualties for Dayu. Ultimately, it comes down to Dayu no longer having the power to completely exterminate all surrounding demons. After all, among these demons, some have become particularly troublesome to handle. The immortal of Gantao Palace spends most of the year seated in the Yuzhou imperial capital and seldom steps out, wary of some demons that might sneak in and launch an attack on the imperial capital. At this moment, Li Hongzhuang reiterated the rules and agreements regarding trespassing of the Four Stands realm's demon kings to Li Hao, and then said, even though these Four Stands realm demon kings seem obedient and don't dare to invade rashly, the military strength of our dynasty is fading, and Mo River has tied up the resources of Tianzhou Divine General Mansion for 700 to 800 years, making these demons grow restless again. They themselves do not dare to take risks easily, fearing retaliation and execution, but they frequently condone other demons under their command to probe our defenses. Thus, even if the imperial court asks, it's just a pointless verbal dispute, so we have to endure it. Li Hao nodded, continuing to listen. He had previously asked his second uncle why the Four Stands realm great demons didn't dare to invade and suggested the older generation could be stationed at the frontier passes for stability. However, the reply he got was that there weren't many elders in the Four Stands realm. Moreover, apart from these like-registered old demon kings that had been warned, every few or a dozen years, there would still spontaneously appear other Four Stands realm demon kings. They came from far-off places or cultivated in the deep mountains and forests. Unfamiliar with Dayu, when they wandered into Dayu territory, they often acted unrestrainedly, some rampaging through cities and lands, and if not stopped in time, were even capable of devouring half a state. The elders needed to deal with these demons, and for those who had already violated the territory and caused mass casualties, there was no point in warnings. They had to be executed to set an example, leading to inevitable great battles. Chapter 177. Many of the old generation in the Divine General Mansion had died for this reason. Seeing that Li Hao was only listening without any questions, Li Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow and proceeded to speak on her own. Although the Dragon Mountain Taoist Master cannot step into the realm, if you rashly appear on its territory, it will have a reason to kill you, so you must absolutely not get close. The Qi Hu Jun you saw tonight is actually the steed of the Dragon Mountain Taoist Master. Li Hongzhuang's eyes turned chilly as she said, "These demons of the Four Stands realm do not move themselves but allow their demon subordinates to repeatedly invade and test us. Once injured or defeated, they directly flee back. If you rashly pursue and kill them, you might instead get caught and eaten by it." A steed? Li Hao's expression turned strange. A true dragon demon king with a tiger as a steed? Dragon riding a tiger? No wonder the tiger demon had chains on it, probably constraints like a saddle, which have also become its weapon for attacking and killing. Aside from the Dragon Mountain Taoist Master, the second demon king is here, to the north. Li Hongzhuang drew another circle on the ground, but it was much larger in scope and closer to the camp. This is the Wan Demon Mountain Range, where there is a demon king who is cultivated for a very long time. We call it the Wan Shan Demon King. This Wan Shan Demon King and the Dragon Lord have comparable strength. It's unclear who is higher or lower, but if we encounter it, death is certain. But it too is registered and has been warned. The six-tusked pig you just slaughtered was one of its fierce generals. She then drew another circle to the south. There is a solitary peak here, but within a 500-mile radius, no one dares to set foot, not even demons dare rashly enter. Inside is the third demon king, the sacred mountain demon king. Li Hongzhuang glanced at Li Hao and said, "You might be somewhat familiar with the origin of this demon king. It once cultivated in the Holy Palace in northern Yen, mastering the peerless techniques of the Holy Palace's demon race, and seemed to have been one of the elders there. It has since left, and hundreds of years ago took a mountain here and declared it to be the sacred mountain. Your father fought against the Holy Palace for over a decade. The situation in northern Yen must be extremely complicated. I also don't know much, but it's truly fortunate that your father was able to return." Li Hao said nothing, his face expressionless. He heard the hint in Li Hongzhuang's words. The war in northern Yen was tough. The other party probably thought that his conflict with that man was because the man had been at war for many years and had not returned home, leaving him bearing resentments and misunderstandings. About this, he neither explained nor did he need to explain anything. "Has the northern cold country trespassed?" Li Hao asked. Li Hongzhuang slightly frowned, seeing that Li Hao didn't continue her topic, and she sighed softly in her heart as Li Hao's aunt and the seventh brother's younger sister. Of course she hoped for father and son to resolve their conflicts and reconcile. But for now it seemed there was no effect. She didn't dwell on it any longer and refocused on Li Hao's question, saying, "The northern cold country wouldn't dare to offend openly, but they do like to play little tricks in secret. Like worshipping the Dragon Mountain Taoist Master, secretly sacrificing numerous living beings every year to probe us." At this point, her expression turned ice-cold. Li Hao frowned. Sacrificing living people to demons in Dayu? Only some extremely backward villages and towns would do this. Mortals offer sacrifices to demons in exchange for protection or demonic strength to exploit their neighbors. If the matter was exposed, the monster suppression department would handle it, executing all involved. But now, other major nations were using these despicable methods against Dayu. Indeed, in the face of war, all means are exhausted to the extreme. After Li Hongzhuang finished speaking, Li Hao also had some understanding of the situation outside the Heavenly Gate Pass. The Qi Hu Jun and six-tusked pig you killed last night are likely to be furious. They may attack again soon, perhaps even tomorrow. Li Hongzhuang's eyes showed no retreat, but instead, a cold killing intent surfaced. Li Hao nodded slightly and asked, so do they usually reside in the Demon King's lair, without their own dens? Of course not, Li Hongzhuang said. The Dragon Mountain Taoist Master is 1,000 miles away from here, and it would take a lot of time for it to travel back and forth. Besides, which general likes to stay under the Master's watch every day? They all have their own lairs outside, where it's more convenient for them to mate, eat, and drink. Li Hao's gaze flickered as he said, then do you know the locations of their lairs? Do you really intend to wipe out their lairs? Li Hongzhuang asked in astonishment. Li Hao nodded, since I've killed them, I might as well kill them all. He spoke calmly, but Li Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed at his words, and soon a cold face revealed a smile. Well said, you've got the killer instinct. She promptly drew 2 circles on the ground with her sword. Scouts have checked before, it seems in these 2 directions, roughly 300 to 400 miles away. You can check it out, but don't go too far, otherwise. If you enter demon territory and get detected by the Demon King, even gods won't be able to save you. Li Hao looked at the crude map she drew, noting down the directions at this moment. The fang in his hand was also heated enough. He immediately retracted the blazing flame in his hand and began to polish the fang with the horn. Carving experience 241935. A series of experience prompts appeared as Li Hao seriously polished. After half an hour of flame roasting, combined with the horn and brute force, the progress of polishing the fang increased rapidly, perhaps due to the rare material of this demon pig's fang. The experience prompt continued uninterrupted, occasionally delivering large amounts of experience. When the roast was ready, Li Hongzhuang picked it up and began eating. Meanwhile, Li Hao continued to polish his carving arts, suddenly showing a prompt. He had accumulated 500 experience points and advanced to the second segment. In the blink of an eye, he gained 2 skill points. Chapter 178. Li Hao couldn't help but sigh. Gaining skill points in the carving arts really is straightforward. However, he guessed that it had something to do with the quality of the pig's tusk. If he were to carve ordinary wooden plaques, he estimated the experience points would probably only increase by 1 or 2 points. To verify this, Li Hao paused his polishing halfway through and, when reheating the pig's tusk for the second time, began carving on a tree stump seated with one hand using a beast horn. With his second stage carving arts, he was already capable of fine carving. Lifelike in detail, he carved a little figure wearing dungarees on the spot, but it only granted him less than 20 experience points. Stinginess itself, it seems carving really does relate to the quality of the materials, just like with his painting and fishing. The greater the difficulty, the more experience he gained. Time quietly slipped by. As the bonfire dimmed, Li Hao finished his third polishing, and the originally curved long pig's tusk had been honed into a somewhat sharp crescent moon shape, but compared to a sword, it was still lacking, barely qualifying as an oversized broadsword with an extremely blunt edge. It might not guarantee a kill if swung, but it would most likely be lethal if used to bludgeon. At the base of the tusk, Li Hao carved out a circular hole for easy gripping in the palm. He instructed Ren Qianqian to not wander around the campsite and to take good care of the little white fox while he was away, and he himself casually shouldered the crescent-shaped pig's tusk sword and walked outside the campsite. You're going tonight? Li Hongzhuang returned to the small mound, and seeing Li Hao's actions, she couldn't help but be stunned. It was still deep into the night, the early hours of the morning. Better now than to let them get away, Li Hao said with a smile. For safety, he had taken the opportunity to rest while honing the tusk sword, and now he felt 70 to 80% recovered. Li Hongzhuang was somewhat speechless, having not expected the young man to be more enthusiastic about slaying demons than herself. Then take care, Li Hongzhuang said. Li Hao had managed to slay 2 great demons and return unharmed. And although he was only in the heavenly human realm, his combat ability was already at the level of the 3 immortal realms. With Li He watching over him, she felt relatively at ease. After all, if one in the 3 immortal realms still needed to be looked after like a child in swaddling clothes, that would be utterly laughable. Li Hao nodded and then leaped into the air, disappearing into the night beyond the campsite. Rushing winds roared as Li Hao traversed mountains and valleys in the dark. His divine soul burst forth from the top of his head, roving under the moonlight, surveilling in all directions. Occasionally, when he spotted lingering lesser demons, he effortlessly struck them down, heading in a straight line in one direction. He left the wilderness outside the pass, crossed forests, and scaled several mountains, traveling 300 li through the night. Eventually, Li Hao smelled the strong stench of blood. On the ground here, there was plenty of fresh blood, as well as the limbs of demon creatures. He glanced at the remains where there were 3 bodies of slain demons. their flesh mangled and torn as if they had been injured and then devoured by their own kind. Li Hao looked ahead, his gaze following to a mountaintop surrounded by various remains, the stench of blood wafting over to him without hesitation. He swiftly flew towards it. "Madam, please restrain your grief. Mr. Blackscale has already gone to Longshan Taoist Temple." Within the large cave hollowed out from the mountain, the light of a fire flickered, casting several ferocious shadows on the cave walls. "Shut up, you cowards! If you had covered the retreat for our lord, how could he have died?" A female's roar echoed from inside the cave. A momentary silence fell within the cave. Suddenly, a breeze brought sounds into the cave. "Who?" The shadows on the cave wall were startled, and soon after, two of the shadows shrank as figures turned around the corner and approached closer to the cave walls, causing their shadows to diminish. "To still linger here? Quite brave indeed," said a calm voice. In the moonlight at the cave entrance, Li Hao came carrying the pig's tusk sword, and behind him, bathed in the cold moonlight, was a hillside strewn with demon corpses. Their deaths were gruesome, with their bodies split open, killed with a single strike. "It's you?" One of the figures, a brawny man with a leopard's tail, turned pale with bulging eyes filled with horror. He recognized the face of the young man. Their leader had been killed by him. "Flee!" After the shock, the thought to flee instantly surfaced in his mind, and his body transformed, attempting to escape to another part of the cave, but a sword sheath suddenly cleaved through the air, and petals seemed to materialize all around. How could there be flowers in the cave? Then, the body of the middle-aged figure split open, collapsing onto the ground with the petals. Its body was torn to pieces in an instant. Whoosh! A divine soul rushed out from its body in utter terror, but before it could escape, another sword chi passed by, obliterating the divine soul instantly. Seeing this, the other demon didn't wait to speak, instead fleeing deeper into the cave as well. 2 minutes later, Li Hao was sitting deep inside the cave, a giant bonfire built from several tree stumps before him. Next to the bonfire lay 4 demon corpses, lifeless. He was flipping through 2 cultivation techniques, which he recorded onto his panel and then said to the robust woman kneeling before him, "Got any other cultivation techniques?" "No, there's no more." The robust woman trembled, revealing deep fear in her eyes. In front of this youth, they didn't even have a chance to escape. The sword chi was invisible, seemingly ignoring distance, able to arrive in an instant. "You mentioned that under the Dragon Mountain Taoist Master, there are 6 others with a cultivation level comparable to your lord?" Li Hao frowned slightly. 6 immortal realm demons. If they were to attack at the same time, Li Hongzhuang and the others would likely have been gone long ago. Chapter 179. Then why didn't they join forces to attack Heavenly Gate Mountain? Li Hao asked. The king said that the Dragon Master doesn't want them to take down Heavenly Gate Mountain too soon. That way, they can slowly savor more delicacies and at the same time, tie down the Li family's military forces. The burly woman trembled as she spoke, her eyes filled with fear, yet it seemed she was also hiding a ferocity. "If that's the case, why does it want to attack tonight?" Li Hao asked again. "The king said it wants to eat Li Hongzhuang. As for Heavenly Gate Mountain, it can just stay here, waiting to see if any other Li family members will come to continue guarding it. If there is one, he will eat one," the burly woman said, cautiously watching Li Hao, the young man in front of her, who also seemed to be a member of the Li family. Li Hao's eyes narrowed slightly. Was Heavenly Gate Mountain being used as bait? Using Heavenly Gate Mountain to consume offerings from the northern cold country while also fishing for the Li family. Why do they want to keep the Li family delayed here? Li Hao asked once more. "I don't know that. The king didn't tell me," the burly woman said, her face turning pale. Li Hao regarded her intently. "It seems," the burly woman said nervously, moving closer. Roar. Suddenly, her mouth filled with fierce teeth ballooned in size, her expression hideous as she transformed into a huge lion's head, attempting to bite off Li Hao's head. But the moment she lunged at him, Li Hao pressed down with his palm from above her head, and her chin fiercely knocked against his knees as he sat there. The bones of the lion head's face, evidently, couldn't withstand the hardness of Li Hao's kneecaps. It was like smashing against stone, resulting in the sound of bones fracturing while her mind was buzzing in confusion. Li Hao's palm had already swept to the back of her neck, and with a flick of his finger, sword chi shot out from his fingertips. It pierced through her cervical spine at the back of her neck, severing a vertebra, decapitating her at that moment. A divine soul flew out from the lion head in a panic, attempting to escape in fear, but Li Hao blew on it, cloaking it with the power of object manipulation and explosively crushing the divine soul. After doing all this, Li Hao's gaze fell upon the 2 cultivation techniques in his hand. Clasping them tightly, the pages of the techniques crumbled to pieces, scattering onto the ground from between his fingers. Li Hao stood up, dusted off his bottom, and then carried his boar tusk sword out of the cave. He stood at the entrance of the cave, his divine soul flying out, using the mountain as a center to survey the area for dozens of miles around. He used his divine soul to sweep across all the demons within a 30-mile radius, slashing and killing them on the ground. He saw some wild animals not yet tainted with demon aura and dispatched them as well, including several ant nests behind the mountain. He waved his hand and collapsed them. Even a group of small fish swimming in a nearby stream got crushed meanwhile. He manipulated the soil to fill in both ends of the stream, cutting off the life of this water source. Without a water source, wild animals would not gather here, greatly reducing the chances of survival. After doing all this, Li Hao checked again to ensure he hadn't missed any signs of life before stepping away and disappearing into the night. 1 hour later, Li Hao appeared in another hill basin. This was the lair of the six-tusked boar, with a minor demon wandering on the hilltop outside the basin patrolling. Li Hao casually picked a weed and pierced its brow from 10 miles away. The patrol flag the minor demon was carrying also dropped. Li Hao walked straight into the basin. The stench of feces and urine hit him in the face, causing him to frown slightly. He immediately held his breath and rushed in quickly. Before long, the stench in the basin was intermixed with a heavy scent of blood. Li Hao's figure rushed out from the inside, swiftly leaving while covering his nose. The place where the boar demon lived could genuinely suffocate a person. That boar demon knew how to enjoy itself. Aside from 7 or 8 sow demons, there were also 2 leopard demons and a sparrow demon in its lair, leading a rather colorful private life. Rushing through the night, Li Hao returned to the camp. Li Hongzhuang sat on a small mound, holding a sword in her arms, appearing to be resting with her eyes closed. The sound of Li Hao returning made her brows twitch slightly, and she slowly opened her eyes, a hint of weariness in her gaze, which she quickly suppressed and asked, "Did you find it?" Li Hao nodded. "There's no danger, right?" Li Hongzhuang asked, but after glancing at Li Hao's body, she knew it was an unnecessary question. Almost threw up. Li Hao said with lingering fear. Li Hao smiled. "You should rest first." Li Hongzhuang gave him a look, asked no more, closed her eyes, and drifted back to sleep. Li Hao returned to the campfire, where Ren came out from the tent and said, "Young master, you've returned. Haven't you slept? Just fell asleep. Then go back to sleep. But you, don't worry about me, go rest." Li Hao waved his hand. Ren looked at him twice, knowing she could not be of any help, wished him good night, and went back into the tent. Li Hao sat down by the campfire, looked around at the night, knowing Feng was still accompanying him in the dark, and couldn't help but silently sigh, even more eager to become stronger quickly so that the old man could relax a bit at a meal tomorrow. Li Hao mumbled to himself, "Cheeky boy, remember what you said." A voice drifted into his ears. Li Hao laughed when he heard it and nodded firmly. Under the moon and stars, the sky was clear. The silhouettes of the old and the young were covered by the night, both faces revealing faint smiles. Li Hao did not rest but began to practice the body-refining techniques he had just acquired, a total of 5, however, only 2 of them were top-tier, even surpassing the Listening Rain Tower's 1,000 Jiao's holy body. Probably only when Li Hao fully developed the primordial skill he could compete with them. The 2 techniques were the 5 organs primordial body and the bright jade true demon skill. As the skills were input into the panel, both techniques were quickly raised to the highest level. The massive memories that had flooded into his mind were now sifted through by Li Hao. He reviewed them once, then stood up in front of the extinguished campfire and began to practice. With the movements of his body, his bones rumbled like low thunder. His blood and flesh were stimulated to exert tremendous power through the practice of the techniques, simultaneously greedily absorbing the energy of the world, continually filling up. Li Hao's physical body was rapidly transforming, his skin becoming delicate, smooth, and tough. Li He, standing in the darkness, watched Li Hao practice, his eyes filled with amazement. Following these days, this was the first time he saw the peerlessly talented young master practice. He had heard from people inside the residence that they never saw the young master practice, but to his surprise, the young master practiced in the middle of the night. But could practicing for just this bit of time every day raise him to a world-renowned level? At that moment, Li He saw the energy between heaven and earth surge and rapidly converge towards the young man's body. Li He's pupils constricted sharply, showing a look of horror. Was this practicing or plunging? The energy of the world gathered like a storm, funneling into Li Hao's body and being absorbed by the 5 organs' primordial body skill. Li Hao's body was being rapidly forged and tempered, his internal organs, including his blood and flesh, and meridians, were all being refined. Terrifying forces radiated from Li Hao's body as his physical strength greatly increased. Such a commotion made Li Hongzhuang, who was far away, inadvertently open her eyes slightly and look over. With one set of the technique completed, Li Hao felt his strength increase substantially, his body's energy became more abundant, and his flesh as tough as beast hide. He then continued to practice a second and a third time, with each repetition. By the 9th time, the enhancement provided by this technique gradually saturated. Chapter 180. Li Hao immediately converged the chi force within his body and gently moved his hands and feet, with the understanding of the 6th stage of the physical body path and the penetrating insight of the Grandmaster realm. He easily gauged the current strength of his flesh, about 400,000 jin. Initially, it was 100,000 jin. With the improvement of the physical body path and the completion of the primordial cultivation skill to the 4th chapter, primordial, coupled with the derivation and enhancement of many other techniques, it increased to over 300,000 jin. Now, this perfected demon technique had directly added 100,000 jin of strength. It might not seem like a large increase in strength when compared to the tens of millions of jin of true qi, and it's not worth mentioning, but excluding demons, including the strong ones of the human race at the 4 stands realm, very few would have pure physical strength of 100,000 jin. The stronger the physical strength, the stronger the impact of the chi force it could withstand. It's the same blood reversal. Others might lose half their lives, but Li Hao would at most spit out some clotted blood and then recover as he perfected the 5 Zong Hunyuan skill. In addition to the increase in physical strength, Li Hao felt that his internal organs, like metal, provided him with strong support whether he was walking, sitting, or standing. Li Hao did not rest and continued to cultivate another technique, Bright Jade True Demon Skill. This technique focused on cultivating the exterior, and as he practiced, the energy of heaven and earth once again converged, quickly pouring into his body. This energy, like dark evil, blocked out the clear night sky and the stars and the moon. The technique primarily refined energy using demonic chi, and fittingly, this place was a battlefield where the demonic chi was most dense. Countless dark demonic chi surrounded Li Hao, shrouding him in darkness. He resembled a true demon. With every opening and closing of his eyes, it seemed a crimson light burst forth. Did he just master that technique, just like that? In the shadows, Li He watched in astonishment as Li Hao switched to another technique, the aura of his cultivation even more formidable than the last. The previous technique, with Li Hao's repeated execution, went from unfamiliar to skilled, and then to rounded perfection, all in the span of 7 or 8 tries. Is this the young master's secret? A few repetitions to perfection? It wasn't just Li Hongzhuang was also shocked from a distance. She had seen prodigies, but never one quite like this. Even when Li He practiced as a child, it would take a few days to perfect a skill back then. With a technique that would take others the whole night just to grasp, he would be entering the doorway by the next day, eliciting admiration and envy from his siblings. But the Li Hao in front of her, this wasn't mere entry-level accomplishment in a night. This was outright perfection. And it was not even a full night's work. As the demonic chi converged and continuously poured into his body to be refined, hammering on his body everywhere, Li Hao's physique improved rapidly. His complexion became as fair as jade, like porcelain glazed with a fluid-like strength within. While absorbing the demonic chi, Li Hao started to practice again, the first time, the second time. As he continued to perform, the demonic chi drew in like a storm. In the blink of an eye, the 8th repetition was completed. The Bright Jade True Demon skill was already mastered, reaching the realm of perfection. The surrounding demonic chi all calmed down, revealing the stars and the moon shining upon the young man's frame. Li Hao exhaled gently and looked down at himself. His fingernails were pale, yet with a little force, a faint black demonic chi seemed to emerge between them. This was originally a demon technique, more suitable for the physique of demon babies, but he had altered it through the physical body path into a body refining technique that the human race could also practice. Still, the core essence of demonic chi within the technique couldn't be erased. Li Hao closed his eyes slightly, then reopened them, a faint black air flashing through his pupils. As if his vision had become different, sharper and brighter, he saw a faint and vague silhouette to his left. It was Li He hiding in the shadows. He paid no attention. At this point, there was no need to deliberately hide or disguise anything. After all, this place was no longer the Li mansion. After finishing his cultivation, Li Hao gauged his bodily strength. The pure strength of the flesh had increased to around 550,000 jin. This demon technique's enhancement was more pronounced than that of the 5 Zong Hunyuan skill, yet it still hadn't reached the physical limit of the power passage realm. Could it be 1,000,000 jin of strength was necessary? Li Hao's gaze flickered. At the common stage of the power passage realm, addition of divine blood amounted to tens of thousands of jin, which was now 100-fold. One wonders how exaggerated the limits of other realms could be. No wonder even within Listening Rain Tower, there were no records of the limits of each realm. If it weren't for his panel, such limits would be unimaginable for ordinary people. Looking at the stars and the moon, Li Hao pondered for a moment, then settled back without further action and entered light sleep to rest. Li Hongzhuang glanced at the young man, suppressing the urge to go and ask. Li Hao had slain Qi Hu Jun last night. There was likely to be a fierce battle today, and she needed to quickly adjust her state without the obstruction of city walls. As the dawn light shone in from beyond the pass, it was like a warm hand softly caressing the faces of the two. Li Hao awoke from his light sleep, with the chess characteristic of concealing one's abilities and biding time. A 1 or 2 hour light sleep was enough to dispel his fatigue, but besides relieving tiredness, sleeping also felt quite nice. Too bad the conditions outside the pass didn't allow him to sleep in. Li Hao rummaged through the camp and found more paper. He immediately began to write again. Li Hongzhuang also woke up. The chilly morning at the beginning of winter brought with it a light frost mist, making her speech visible as a faint white breath. Are you writing another technique? Yes. There might be a tough battle today. Let's talk about it when it comes. Li Hao appeared casual, seemingly unconcerned. Li Hongzhuang glanced at the technique Li Hao was writing and said, even if you finish writing, there's no one who can deliver it back for you. Maybe the senior gentleman can help. Li Hao looked toward Li He hidden in the shadows. Li He hadn't expected Li Hao to be aware of his location. His expression changed slightly. Since things had come to this, there was no need to continue lurking in the darkness. He walked out openly and approached them, saying,